When you think of the word doula, you might have heard the word doula. You probably think of childbirth. At least that's what I think of. You may not have heard of the phrase death doula. So this is similar, but also very, very different, given that a death doula focuses on end of life care. And this show is about money. We talk about money, 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 but we talk a lot about estate planning. And what fascinates me about this idea is how it can fit in with our broad conversations about estate planning. Michelle Leray is a certified end of life doula, and she joins us now from Winnipeg, Manitoba, to talk about what it is that she actually does. Michelle, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Uh, I had never seen the phrase death doula. I did not know what it was. And I feel like I know about lots of things, but I did not know about this. Describe for our listeners what a death doula does.
So, a death doula is a non-medical professional that helps to support the dying and their loved ones before, during, and after death takes place. So, we can be called in as early as when a life-limiting or a life-altering diagnosis has been made, or we can be called in, even near the end, just to help, provide that education, the information and support that they need so that they know what choices to make, so that they make informed choices. And also we can provide, depending on every doula's area of expertise or training, some of us provide non-medical pain relief and other such things that can be very helpful to the families as well as the person who is dying.
Mm. One of the things that I saw in my research was that oftentimes death doulas can provide respite for family who are sitting at bedside, sometimes for days, weeks, months on end, and they couldn't bear the thought of their loved one, having a crisis or even passing away in their absence. How
Mhm.
do you provide respite for families in that way?
So we can definitely, every family is different, every case is different. So it really depends on what they need. In my experience, sometimes I will actually encourage families to even give the person who is dying some alone time because what often happens is that they need to die alone.
Yes.
They want that. And I often get these calls where people are just beside themselves because they have spent 99% of the time by their bedside, and the one moment they went away, within 30 seconds to 5 minutes, that's the time the person dies. And so, we have to be very careful not to give them too much, of that bedside. Sometimes they like that alone time for that. But in the weeks and months leading up to that time, yes, absolutely, I can be there to provide, support so that the person, who's doing the primary caregiving can have a moment to take a shower, to take a nap.
Mm.
It is all encompassing, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to be by the bedside of someone that
Mm.
you love that is dying.
You've studied this. You are in a community of people who provide this service. I can only imagine the level of intuition that would be required to do this well because you are trying to read the room every single moment you are there to see what is needed and wanted. For
Mhm.
you, was this something that you had to train yourself in, or really finding this a self expression for you, putting to use skills and gifts that you already had?
I would say for myself personally, definitely this is something I was always called to do. I knew that I would be someone who could be beside those who, walking beside them as far as I can take them on that journey. It's something that I've always felt drawn to, even when loved ones of my own were dying. And I, was very humbled and grateful to be able to be by their bedside as much as possible during their time. And seeing that it was something that I just felt, as you say, it was very intuitive. It's something that I can just um, tune into and kind of have an idea as to what everyone in the room needs, what everybody around needs, and to offer that insight and guidance to those who maybe are overwhelmed and stressed by the weight of this
Mm.
because it is difficult. Not everyone knows what to do when someone they love is dying, and to have someone come in and not lead or tell everyone what to do, but to guide and offer suggestions, to offer
Yeah,
that insight, it can make a huge difference for how everyone
yeah.
faces that time.
Sure. And to say it's okay. It's okay for you to have a shower. It's okay for you to
Absolutely.
play music. It's okay for you to. You are a Métis woman. Tell
Yes.
me a bit about how your culture fits with your practice.
So I'm very blessed to be an Anishinaabe drummer and singer. So often, if I'm called into a place where If the person is Indigenous and would like some of that, sometimes I can offer, smudging ceremonies or, the drumming, the singing, just very, very, very softly, even just to provide that beautiful energy that, those traditions, to bring that in. And often I am actually called to funerals to provide that after the fact
Mm.
too, which can be very lovely because, being able to blend that bit of culture into the ceremonies and the services can really help people start their grieving
Mm.
process. And I see that all the time, and I'm just very grateful to be able to do that for them.
How do you include the traditions of other cultures and encourage people to bring in what makes sense for them based on their culture, based on their faith, based on their music tastes? How do you customize that so that for them that's a self-expression?
So whenever I first meet a family, I will, whether it's a family or just, it might be a couple, it might be just the dying person, it depends on the situation. I will ask them a lot of questions at the beginning. What is important to you? Where are your family traditions? How important are they to, have involved at this time? And, before, during, and after, what would you like in terms of religious or spiritual practices or ceremonies or rituals? And, I don't profess to be an expert on all of the traditions, at all. But what I do is I try to either bring in people that can help with that, or I learn what I can and I help make sure that it can be provided if it is important to them.
I lost my mom recently, and my mom and I had a very close relationship and a very relationship grounded in humor. So
Yeah.
even in her final days, that was present for
Mhm.
us, as it always had been, and as I always hope it will be. How do you include that for families for whom that's a value? Because I can imagine some people have this picture of what death is, and it needs to happen like it happens on a TV show, and everybody needs to be crying all the time, and all
Mhm.
that. And, it certainly wasn't my experience.
No, one of the first things I usually tell people is that it's not like how it is in the media on TV, that's for, that audience. So I will give a very realistic view as to what is likely to happen. And
Mm,
also remember that, remind everybody that, life is very unpredictable. So just because it might go this way, it doesn't mean it will. I find that the more we talk about it, though, and include everybody in those discussions and get everybody on the same page,
mm,
that's when the humor can come through again. Because now nobody's tiptoeing, no one is
yeah.
walking on eggshells because now they're aware of what is happening and that the person who is dying actually wants to talk about it or maybe even does want to joke
Mm,
about it once in a while.
yeah.
I've had people say, they'll say something to people in the room and you'll hear the person who is going on the trajectory towards death and they'll say something like, I'm not dead yet. And everybody kind of
Yes.
laughs,
I'm
and it's
still
like, okay,
here.
yeah, it's like I'm not
Yeah.
gone yet. And it helps to ease that tension, all of that worry. It makes a
Mm,
big difference. And I love when I
yeah.
can see that humor come out.
I am so grateful that we live in a country that has embraced the principles and laws of medical assistance in dying. And it's just, we're extraordinarily lucky. What have you noticed about your participation for clients for whom that is the choice that they have made?
Absolutely. So I remain very neutral on the topic. I don't tell people for or against it. That's not my role, but I definitely can provide the information about it. And I have had several clients who have gone that route. And so supporting them even up until the day of, to the morning of, it can be very helpful for them to have that support, even just to talk about what they might experience or what they might feel and what is going to happen. It makes a huge difference. And even to be there to support their loved ones, before or as it's happening can make a difference for how they face it. But I have found so far that the people that have chosen medical assistance in dying made usually due to a very life-limiting illness, it has made a huge difference for
Mm,
their feeling of control and not losing their dignity
mm.
in that time.
What should people know about the cost of this type of service? It's not going to be covered by, a benefits plan in all likelihood. It's not free. You deserve to earn a living wage for the work that you do and the contribution you make. What should people know? Is this $1,000? Does it completely depend on the engagement and the time that you're working with that family?
That's exactly it. It does depend on how much I'm involved. If a family needs me, once a week to start off with, so he might come by, I might be there once a week, and then as things progress, I will progressively be there more often, depending on the situation. Sometimes families just need a few good conversations. So If I'm just called in for, say a single session where getting everybody on board and offering suggestions, that might cost up to, between 100 to 140. It depends on how long I'm there, or, depends on a few scenarios. If it's ongoing care, though, I definitely work on a sliding scale, and I'll offer packages to my clients. So it can range from anywhere between $60 an hour up to $100 an hour. But again, I want them to keep their budget in mind. It's much more important to me that they receive the service than it is for me to
Mhm.
go on the higher end. So if they need even less, then we will talk about it, because it is
Mhm.
important. If they feel called to have that support, I'm going to make sure they get it.
The word doula means woman who serves.
Mhm.
Are there men who do this work?
Yes, there are. Absolutely. So that's wonderful to see. And I love that, that balance. And, definitely not as many, but I'm sure that in time that will shift for sure.
Just before we go, you've been serving clients for a while. You have been present to both families and to individuals who have passed away. What is the most resonant piece of wisdom that you would offer about death and grief from your experience doing this work?
Well, there's so much I could say, but if I
Mm,
was to say one thing, there is nothing to fear. This is something that is very natural, and it is a process that we will all eventually go through, but it is not something that needs to be feared. And the more we talk about it, this is why it's so important. Include your families, include your animal companions, include the children that are in your life, and have these discussions long before they're needed.
mm,
And, this will make a huge difference for how your quality of life increases, because now there's
mm.
no more fear, there's no more worry. It's something that needs to be spoken about for sure.
Yeah. Well, here we have done our job in that regard because we've spoken about it today. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Michelle Leray is a end-of-life doula. She joined us from Winnipeg, Manitoba today to talk about what that is, how it works, and what I hope you take away is the benefit of having these conversations with your loved ones.